Mr. Councillor Liam Robinson, I've got Tony Dales, and I've got Mr. Samper, and I've got Mr. Pauline. Is that the right word? Pauline. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, Steve, over to you.
Morning, everybody. We're here today to consider the grant of a premises licence for Biedronka, which is on 4 Prescot Road, Liverpool. Just as outlay at the very beginning, the subcommittee have been provided with the information of the operating schedule for the application, the plan of the premises, all the representations received, which was from the police, councillors and one individual party, the applicant's proposals, the police full bundle, and the applicant's additional information. The applicant is a Mr. Mustafa Porian, and he is also down as the designated premises supervisor. The application was received on the 25th of January. The premises is a general convenience store with the off-sale of alcohol proposed. The sale of alcohol will be Monday to Sunday, 12 until 21. The opening hours for the premises will be longer at Monday to Sunday, 9 until 2200 hours. Received representations from Merseyside Police, 3 councillors and 1 individual party. Everybody for the meeting has been advised of the paperwork that's been passed over. So that's my presentation, Chair. Over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay. So order of the day, is Mr. Samper, are you going to speak on behalf of the application?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Okay, so I will bring you in first, then I will bring in Miss Lawrenson, and then I'll bring in Councillor Robinson. Is that okay with everybody?
Ma'am,
okay.
Mr. Dale is here to talk through the extensive compliance measures that will be employed at the premises. So if it's at all possible, if he can follow me, please, ma'am.
That's fine, thank you. So over to you, Mr. Samper.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Now, this application centres on a first-class, highly appointed Eastern European food store, which has a long history of trading successfully and without issue. The application is straightforward in its terms and highly conditioned in its content. Now, we've prepared a video which demonstrates exactly how clean, well-stocked, light and airy these premises, how they're laid out, and the very clientele that patronise it. So can we please confirm that everyone on the panel has viewed it? And if not, I will send through the link on YouTube for you to have a look at in recess. Now, for reasons of time and clarity, I will deal with the representations of Merseyside Police, the ward councillors and the member of the public largely together. Essentially, this application is dismissed out of hand on the grounds that the grant of the premises licence to these excellent premises will cause additional alcohol-related crime and ASB problems in the area. I understand their position and will explain why I beg to differ. Now, the burden is on the applicant, i.e. us, to show that the proposals in and around the operating schedule are capable of promoting the licensing objectives. The representatives, on the other hand, have the burden to show the opposite, that premises operating under this schedule will undermine the licensing objectives and demonstrate that with evidence. In our submission, any subcommittee properly advised can only refuse this application if this operating schedule is not capable of promoting the licensing objectives. There is not one there's not one shred of evidence in the representations that challenges or criticises in any way the operating schedule, the premises, the applicant, or the designated premises supervisor. Now, this is a new premises licence application, so your legal advisor will confirm that anything that has occurred before regarding when the building was a Tesco local or any previous applications are irrelevant in law. So let me first tell you about the applicant, Mustafa Porian. He was born in Iraq in 1986 and has lived in England for the past 16 years and has held a British passport since 2012. He has a partner and young children. Mustafa is a licensee of some experience and currently is premises licence holder and DPS at 2 similar supermarkets, being the Sun Market in Palatine Road, Manchester, and the European Delicatessen, Ashton Old Road in Manchester. Although not within the Manchester stress areas, these premises are located within wards that certainly present issues and challenges of their own. Yet neither one of these premises has ever come to the notice or has caused any concern to the relevant responsible authorities in Manchester, who, like you, take your responsibilities very seriously. At both Manchester premises, he has committed staff to training and has employed Mr. Dales to use the due diligence folders of measures, which we will explain later. At the Sun Market premises, he has a female manager called Miss Alexandra Veresco. She has a personal licence issued by Oldham Council. She has worked in both Manchester supermarkets. If this premises licence is issued today, Alexandra will be transferred to the Liverpool shop, and subject to a successful transition, she will be installed as DPS. Until then, Mustafa will treat the Liverpool shop as his main priority until the control measures following any grant are bedded in. He is also committed to having a minimum of 3 staff with personal licences, one of which will be on duty at all times, that alcohol may be permitted to be sold. So all staff will be trained in responsible alcohol retailing by Mr. Dales himself. Now, regarding the style of the premises, you will have seen the video, hopefully. This shop is patronised by families. It's clean, it's light, it's smart, it's modern. We are miles away from the stereotypical dark and dingy corner shop model. Now, Liverpool City Council has been exceptionally helpful in its statement of licensing policy by providing a list of model conditions, and I will cross-reference them as we go through this application line by line. I will therefore address you on how the operating schedule is capable of and will promote the licensing objectives, and will list them. So, we do not seek to sell alcohol before 12 in the morning or indeed after 9 at night. Therefore, children on their way to school will not witness anyone who's bought alcohol from us. That's in accordance with the Statements of Licensing Policy 9.3, Para 3 and 11.5, Para 4. We won't stock any beer. We will not stock or sell any cider, let alone strong cider. We won't stock or sell any beer or lager over 6.5% ABV, and we won't sell in single cans. That is in accordance with Liverpool City Council Statements of Licensing Policy 11.5, Para 3. Moreover, we will staff our premises with confident, competent staff. We will train all our staff in responsible alcohol retailing. We will give them 6 monthly refresher courses. That's in accordance with Model Condition 2, Para 1. We will implement and employ exemplar due diligence control measures. That's in accordance with Model Condition 2, Para 2. We will safeguard by operating Challenge 25, and we will safeguard against proxy sales. That's in accordance with the Statement of Licensing Policy 3.4 and exceeds your own Model Condition 5 at Para 1, which only asks for Challenge 21. And we will do regular litter checks. That's in accordance with Model Condition 4, Para 46. Therefore, every single element of the operating schedule before you does indeed demonstrate how we have complied with every element of Liverpool City Council's stated aims in order to promote the licensing objective. But we have gone even further still by offering potential additional conditions beyond and above the recommendations of your Statements of Licensing Policy and Model Conditions for a convenience store with an off licence. We offer to have a personal licence holder on duty at all times that the premises is authorised to retail alcohol. That's in accordance with Model Condition 2, Para 1. We offer to restrict all sales of cans of beer and lager to a minimum of 4 cans. We offer not to stock, display or sell any bottles of spirits under 75 centilitres in volume. We offer to employ SIA door staff on a risk-assessed basis. That's in accordance with Model Condition 2, Paras 3 to 7. And we offer not to sell any alcohol unless it is contingent upon a purchase of groceries or household goods to the minimum value of £5. That's in accordance with nothing I have ever heard of before. In effect, this means that we will predominantly retail alcohol to family shoppers. Now, but rest assured, members of the committee, we will consider and no doubt accept whatever further and additional conditions that you think are appropriate to the grant of a premises licence to this first-class, food-led, family-orientated, foreign grocery business in order to promote the licensing objectives. Therefore, you must simply ask yourself, does this application support the licensing objectives? And if it does, then with respect, it should be granted. Now, it is fair to say that the police have talked about crime and antisocial behaviour. In our submission, it is historical, declining, and mostly irrelevant. This data cannot be relevant because this premises did not contribute to the pre-existing or current situation referred to by the police in any way whatsoever. And the good local councillor talks about the possible threats around antisocial behaviour, public safety outside the shop, and we'll cover that later, public nuisance and child protection, yet lacks, with respect, any statistical evidence were you to grant this application. But let us examine who else has made representations or not. The licensing authority, acting as a responsible authority, has raised no representation. Environmental health, who deal with the quality of life issues, have raised no representation. Trading standards, who deal with underage sales of alcohol, have raised no representation. Public health, who deal with substance abuse issues, have raised no representation. And the safeguarding board for your, the safeguarding board for your fair city, who protect children from harm, have raised no representation. It can be logically concluded that of all those responsible authorities, they are all satisfied that the operating schedule they have seen and examined in detail is capable of promoting the licensing objectives. Moreover, they believe that it will not undermine them. Thus, we are left with the police, who wish to talk predominantly about historical pre-existing crime, and a local councillor who, with all great respect, wishes to raise matters within the remit of the responsible authorities, all of whom have remained silent regarding this well-conditioned application. So we now move on to our next point. The police filed their representation on the 27th of January 2021 and listed their short but generic objections, citing only the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective. They were silent on all others. Members, as consultation is closed, it is not now possible for them to reduce evidence before you relating to any other licensing objective, such as public safety or public nuisance, for example. Now, none of us are in any doubt that neither the cumulative impact policy or the cumulative impact assessment remains in place for this location. That is a given. Therefore, this decision, like any others in such circumstances, needs to be made on its own merits. And, as I have said, the evidence before you leaves the operating schedule and offered conditions completely unchallenged. So I've searched some statistics on you, as have the police. If you look at the www.ukcrimestats.com data, which is Exhibit DNS1 across Merseyside Police in the last available quarter, crime has dropped 17% and ASB has dropped a whopping 40%. Then if you look at the Home Office crime and ASB stats, which we provided from the police.uk crime mapper site, those are exhibits DNS 2 to 7, we can see that crime has actually fallen in the locality. I'm sure that you've studied these most up-to-date graphs of crime data, which were available at the time of the submission, and which have been provided in your bundles, and will give them the appropriate weight as the official Home Office statistics that they undoubtedly are for the actual location of the applicant's shop. Now, street drinking has been mentioned in some evidence. The ASB Crime and Policing Act of 2014 and the House of Commons briefing paper 5117 reminds us that drinking in the street or in a public place is not an offence. It is not even an offence to drink in a controlled alcohol area. It is only an offence to refuse a request to cease drinking or surrender alcohol to an authorised person. Therefore, street drinking is not a crime and therefore does not fall within the prevention of crime licensing objectives. Consequently, street drinking per se predominantly lies outside the remit of the police representation. Begging, on the other hand, is an ancient offence and has remained on the statute book in the form of the Vagrancy Act 1824. But over recent years, both it and street drinking have been addressed through the legislative use of public spaces protection orders, which allows councils to impose conditions on activities that people may or may not carry out in a designated area. There is indeed a PSPO in place covering this location. The primary tool to deal with this begging problem should be the PSPO and not the Licensing Act. A recent Freedom of Information request revealed that the police have only ever issued one fixed penalty notice for breach of a PSPO in the Kensington and Fairfield ward. And that was back on the 29th of September 2019. And no PCSO or Liverpool City Council enforcement officer has ever done so in the life of the records of that PCSO. This leads us to two possible conclusions, or two questions perhaps. One, if alcohol-related ASB is such an issue as to warrant this good council providing the enforcement agencies with a PSPO, then why is it not being utilised to address this issue over the last 3 years? And secondly, can alcohol-related ASB be indeed such an issue at this location if the enforcement agencies are not addressing it by using their primary enforcement tool, say, but only once in the last 3 years? It's as if the police have come here today to tell us of a massive problem, but they've also consistently failed to address it in any meaningful way using the correct legislative tool. Now, that said, and it must be said again, any pre-existing issues with crime, street drinking or begging simply can't be laid at the door of this applicant, as he has sold 0 alcoholic products from his premises to date. These premises have not in any way contributed to any crime or ASB statistics. Neither will they in future in our submission in the event that the licence is granted, because of the extensive control measures contained within the operating schedule and the offered conditions. I must next point out to you para 2.21 of statutory guidance, word for word, and I quote, and I make no excuse for quoting because it's there, it's the will of Parliament. It says, beyond the immediate area surrounding the premises, these are matters for the personal responsibilities of individuals under the law. An individual who engages in antisocial behaviour is accountable in their own right. I would extend that to crime as well, incidentally, but the statutory guidance is silent on it. I'm therefore not convinced that ASB perpetrated distance up the road from these premises, which to date have sold 0 alcoholic products anyway, can be attributed to these premises, either in fact, law, or with the benefit of the crystal ball as to what may or may not happen at some undisclosed time in the future. You will, of course, be reminded by your legal advisor that speculation of what might happen is excluded from your considerations under the dictum of the famous Thwaites case, which I've discussed with you before, I seem to remember. Now, this approach is reiterated in the Liverpool City Council Statement of Licensing Policy at para 6.5, where it hammers home the same point. This is your policy, not mine. In addressing applications, it says the licensing authority will primarily focus on the direct impact of the activities taking place at the licensed premises on members of the public living, working, engaged in normal activities in the area concerned. Okay. The licensing authority recognises that licensing law is not the primary mechanism for the general control of nuisance and antisocial behaviours by individuals once they're away from the licensed premises, and therefore beyond the direct control of the individual club or business holding the licence certificate or authorisation concerned. That's what your own statement of licensing policy says. And of course, all that presupposes, of course, that these same perpetrators have ever visited these particular premises, i.e. Biedronka, and have successfully penetrated the extensive control measures that this applicant and Mr. Dales will put in place. Now I've got to talk to you about likelihood, because that is an element. Let's break down how likely a real and tangible rise in crime and disorder would be. The representatives take the position that were you to grant this application, the situation will become worse. Now, I gainsay that. Selling low-strength alcohol that street drinkers do not favour in small quantities between the hours applied for will not cause a new localised spike in alcoholism or conjure up many more so far unidentified street drinkers who will suddenly flood into the area. They have no evidence of that. It is merely their opinion, valued though it is, and is based on speculation. Next thing is this. Just because another premises opens, it does not follow that there will be an increase of alcohol on the street. Think hard about that for a moment, because the amount of alcohol on the street will not increase unless there is a sudden, simultaneous and corresponding increase in the street population, coupled with an increase in the available spend of each member of that street population. It is simply not realistic to anticipate multitudes more of misbehaving alcohol-dependent people will suddenly head down to Kensington upon hearing that Biedronka has now been granted a premises licence to sell alcohol, but only contingent on a minimum sale of £5 worth of groceries. That is both unfeasible and illogical. And lastly, think again. I've shown you a video of families buying their weekly groceries at this specialist, well-stocked store. What family like these, like the ones you look at in that video, buying their groceries, are then going to go outside, start street drinking, start begging, and start beating each other up? It's ludicrous to think that this will happen. The applicant's got a perfect right to apply for this licence, Chair, and be treated lawfully and fairly throughout the process in accordance with the UK primary legislation. That will include the Licensing Act and Equalities Act, but also the statutory guidance and your own statement of licensing policy in that order of hierarchy. I must remind you that you have not read in these representations one piece of evidence that speaks against this particular applicant, his premises, or his proposed operating schedule. The representatives must recognise that they are asking a lot of this panel. Were this application to be refused, you, the panel, must show in your decision the reasons why this unchallenged operating schedule and offered conditions will fail to promote the licensing objectives. Secondly, you must show the reasons why you consider that the grant of this heavily conditioned yet modest application would undermine the licensing objectives. And thirdly, you must demonstrate that there are no further appropriate conditions that would prove effective in preventing the speculative problems that the police and council say will necessarily ensue. Where is the evidence or support for the theory that the licensing objectives will not be promoted? And where is the evidence to show that the licensing objectives will be undermined? Therefore, with Mustafa's excellent track record of running similar premises in city settings and all the conditions that have been offered, we must impress upon you that the operating schedule and the applicant are sufficiently robust to ensure the promotion of the licensing objectives. Consequently, I respectfully exhort you to grant this modest yet highly conditioned application. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Mr. Samper. Well done. Okay. Mr. Dales, is that okay now? Right. Okay, Mr. Samper, we're just going to ask a couple of questions. What percentage of alcohol will be sold in this establishment?
Tony, have you got any headphones?
I fear that it's my volume problem that's causing a problem. I do apologise for this. No, it's really not acceptable, is it?
Tony, if someone's there with you, they may be able to have a look at your computer, and you need to turn your speakers off, not the microphone. It's the speakers on your computer which is causing the feedback. If anyone can help you with that.
In the meantime, the good chair has asked a question about percentage. I'm thinking the question is about the percentage of the layout of the premises. It's looking like 10%, ma'am, if that was what you were asking before we had the technical issue.
Yeah. So the hours of trading to sell alcohol is 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. Is that right?
I think I've resolved it, Chair.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay now without interference? Mm-hmm. Thank you for your assistance with that, by the way. I'll remember that for the future. Okay, yes. You asked the question regarding the strengths of alcohol. I've been involved for some time now in the reducing of...
No, I know the percentage of alcohol sold. I want to know how much, what percentage of alcohol will take up the area in the shop.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the plan drawings. The alcohol will be sold in the far corner. We estimate that the area coverage of that is probably 5 to 10% of the supermarket in that one corner, and then also behind the till, as usual, with the whiskies, gins, etc.
Okay. So you said you're going to have 3 staff on at all times. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's more staff than 3. In Biedronka, we normally range between 6 to 8 staff because of the actual size of the place. The issue of a personal licence holder being on the premises, we did make reference to that. We do have 3 staff that we've identified that I personally will be mentoring and training to get them their personal licences, purely to increase the level of due diligence and knowledge.
Okay. So what I'm getting at is you said the alcohol will be in a fridge in the far corner. Is that right?
It is indeed, yes.
Is it an open fridge?
Yeah, the fridges are like coolers. I do believe that there are certain fridges that for wines where they do have a door to them. But also, as you've seen, the area is heavily CCTV'd. And the good thing about this design as well is that where the beers and wines are, it is a dead end. It isn't as if people can buy there and then go to other parts of the shop. They have to come back towards the till area once they've acquired the alcohol.
What I'm getting at, and it does happen where gangs of youths go into a shop and 2 are talking to the staff, and then you've got the others that are taking the alcohol and running out with it. So what protection do you have for staff on that situation?
Ma'am, clearly, sorry, I maybe should have hit it more with a highlighter. We are offering to employ door staff on a risk assessed basis. Now, if we are identified that we've got a stop loss problem, particularly, I don't know, between 5 and 7, well, clearly, Mr. Dales's risk assessment will identify that that's when he's going to have his SIA on.
Okay. And the other thing is, you said your client has been trading for a number of years.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
So has he ever been before a licensing committee before, or has he ever failed a stop check?
No, not to my, Mr. Pauline has been with me now for 2 to 3 years with regarding due diligence with his Manchester stores. And everything has gone fine. Those 2 stores in Manchester, I've never had one issue. I liaise very carefully with the licensing constables and the licensing authority with regard to Mr. Mustafa there.
He's never failed a check on any of those shops underage.
No, it's never failed anything at all. And I through the due diligence folder, which I will discuss in a minute, we have certain stop checks in place with regard to monitoring the performance of staff. In addition to incidents that take place, I'd like to just add regarding incidents, within the due diligence folder, there is an incident register. That incident register will for Mustafa and the management staff there, that if they discover that there are incidents that are occurring that you've just alluded to, then transparency is extremely important, and that those incidents are recorded in the register, which they will be, and they will form, if it's a pattern or a trigger, that they have certain issues that require further security or a different policy or procedure of operating within the shop.
Thank you for that. I'm going to leave it there. They may come back. Councillor Rep,
okay.
Any questions?
Yes, just 2, please, Chair. When we were talking about percentages before, you were referring to the percentage of area in the shop that was covered by alcohol. My question would be more to the percentage of alcohol sales. What sort of percentage is the licensee expecting? Is it maybe 30% of his total sales to groceries that will be alcohol?
Yeah, Chair, I spoke to my client about this on a previous occasion. We estimated probably in the region of 18 to 20% would probably be an accurate figure. Obviously, different places have different demands, and that could either be a little bit smaller or a little bit larger. But that's the percentage that we're looking at. But it is an estimate, as you can appreciate.
Of course. And the second question is, on your floor plan, where the beers are stored, there's a doorway or some sort of opening. Is there any like a turnstile or restriction, so people, as there was alluding to about you going in and grabbing beer and running out, is there anything there to obstruct them being able to do that?
Yeah, if I can explain one thing on, I'm not sure the plans are exactly what it shows, but as you walk into the area where you buy your beers and wines, that will be a dead end. I believe there's a butchery there, so people have to turn around. They cannot go through there, go into another area and hide themselves or be out of the sight of staff at the till. So the people have to literally physically walk back to the till. So no, there is no turnstile. There was a discussion regarding that, but we didn't feel the turnstile was going to achieve anything that we talk about people being able to run away from the place. You know, it just did not seem effective as making sure that the staff are trained well, that we have good CCTV, so that we can identify if there are any issues with occurring in the shop.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Kelly, have you got any questions?
Yeah, just the one. Obviously, there's a proposal here for a condition that no alcohol will be sold unless there's a purchase of groceries or household goods to the minimum of value of £5. How stringently will that condition be followed? Because I presume that's on there potentially in recognition to concerns about street drinkers being able to come in and purchase just alcohol in order to go off onto the streets and drink that. So, as I say, how stringently will that be followed by all staff within the store? For instance, will they be constantly reminded about that? And also, how will customers know that this policy is in place? Are there any proposals to make them aware that this condition is in place?
Yeah, thank you, sir. That's two very good questions, and I will do my level best to cover all aspects. The first question with regard, and it's your last one in relation to preparation, we have already discussed and put together a leaflet that will be available at the store prior to any opening. Can I make just one thing clear to everybody? From a policy compliance and due diligence point of view, I'm in control of the time when this shop opens and sells alcohol. I am liaising with Mr. Pauline. There's going to be no diving into the shop, getting its stock in and selling at the first opportunity. We are going to make sure that everything is first. And to answer your question, we have a leaflet that is going to be produced in English and Polish. I do actually have it here. It is something that we've put together. You haven't got a copy of that. I certainly can get it emailed to me if you want to see it. There is a leaflet in English and Polish, and then there is, if I can explain, an A1 flip chart. This is saying that we've been given the opportunity to sell alcohol. So in the future, when we sell alcohol, you will have to spend £5 worth of groceries. So it's an introduction. The actual notice itself, the big flip chart, tells people of what the requirements are with regard to the groceries being sold to £5 purchase. So those are in place and ready to go. And as I say, they've been translated into Polish, so there'll be two of everything with regard to that. And so that will cover that side more than adequately to inform people that this is happening. Now, in the other side, we will put onto the till This is the first thing. The till will have a prompt. The till has a prompt at the moment for challenge 25, not challenge 21, challenge 25, which means that people are challenged as to their age of proving they're 18 if you look under 25. We have already put together the prompt that Mr. Pauline is skilled in doing with the tills, where there will, if alcohol is going through the till, a prompt comes up that necessitates the £5 worth of groceries to be purchased. So training on top of that with the staff, which I will be responsible for, will be to train staff where alcohol's involved, that the groceries are put through first, the alcohol is finished as a secondary purchase, if you like, because then, number one, the till will prompt, but the individual will know that groceries have come through before the purchase of the alcohol goes through. I hope I've explained that clearly to you. My training is key. Please, I'm an ex-police licensing inspector with Derbyshire Constabulary. I'm a trainer. I'm qualified at BIAB to deliver personal training. I'm accredited by the government on drink drive training. My training stands the test of time. It has done with Mr. Purian's 2 previous stores. I think this is the bigger challenge with what local council have a concern, but we can overcome that challenge with qualifying staff, good training, informing the customers what's going to happen here.
Thank you, someone.
That we are going to be a family shop. We're not going to be an off license. So I'm hoping that level of intervention answers the question for you, really, of what we're going to do.
Yeah, just in relation to the A1 sign you mentioned, you were just slightly breaking up as you're going over that. Is that going to be a freestanding sign, like on a flip chart, or is it going to be affixed to the front of the premises?
It's going to be affixed. I don't want no flip charts. Yeah. They're going to be printed professionally by Mr. Purian.
And would there be any objection or would you accept a condition in relation to a sign of that nature being at the front of the premises? Because I think it's important that customers going into the premises need to be made aware of this before they really set foot into the premises. Otherwise, it increases the potential for maybe some disorder within the premises if they find that at the till they are not going to be able to purchase alcohol if they've not made any grocery purchases.
Yeah, I am totally in agreement with that condition. This is something that I have to say I came up with. I was having long conversations with Mr. Purian about his aspirations for the store, being a family orientated store with always local people that are there traditionally and constantly go there. So getting in people informed in the first place with the leaflet was critical, but actually having notices up, which assists the staff. If staff can relate to the notices that are up to explain to people, I think that goes a long way. So your request for a condition, I think, is absolutely excellent, and I would agree with that totally.
That's all I have. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Robin, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one, Chair. Thank you. Obviously, your hours that you want for the sale of alcohol are a lot less than the shop opening hours. Can you just confirm how you're proposing to make sure that the alcohol is not seen on display when there's no licence? Yep.
Yes, I can answer that. The first thing is that at 9 o'clock, there is physical barriers like a pull-down screen that goes in front of the alcohol. That's the first thing, and it is a physical barrier. In addition, it's a further notice, and I know we don't want to go notice overload, but there'll be a clear message, and obviously within the training to staff, that at 9 o'clock no further alcohol is sold. So there will be a notice up of the hours on top of everything. But the staff will be trained, and I've dealt with this with Mr. Purian before with the previous, it's 2 other premises. If he needs to put the shields down, then the shields go down to prevent that visual of the alcohol being available for sale. Hello? I've lost you.
Yep.
Is that all,
Thank
Councillor?
you.
Thanks, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Robin.
No, thank you, Chair. I have no more questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, I would just like to cover one aspect which I think is critical for you. My due diligence folder, which probably has been going now for 6 to 8 years, yeah, nearly 8 years now in South Manchester. It has been evolved to ensure that we support those 4 licensing objectives, most critically, and also to support the conditions of the licence. At the front of the due diligence folder, which I have submitted, and you probably see it, there is what they call a licensing health check. And that licensing health check, depending on what conditions you require for that licence, the licensing health check reflects on those conditions, and the checklist ensures that all of those conditions are met before the premises are allowed to sell alcohol. That is my call. I take responsibility for that. Mr. Pauline knows it. He's been working with me for long enough now to know that those premises will open, not in a rush, not without giving due thought to the conditions that are put in there, so that we are fit for purpose. And the staff, that it will not also open until I've delivered the responsible retail alcohol training to the staff, which I've sent a copy of my training plan to you. All of that will take place. It will not be retrospective. It will be before, because my credibility stands on my training and then the compliance. That's very important to me. Very important. Thank you.
I think you've summed up twice there, but never mind. Okay. I'm going to bring in Miss Lawrenson now from the police. Miss Lawrenson, over to you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. You will recall that this matter was last before the subcommittee on 8th December 2020, when the application for a premises licence was refused following representations from Merseyside Police and local councillors for this area. I'm here this morning to represent the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police in order to make representations against the application for a premises licence by Mustafa Purian, the premises known as Biedronka, Unit 6, 4 Prescot Road, Kensington, Fairfield, Liverpool 7. I refer the committee to the Licensing Policy 2021-26 prepared by Liverpool City Council, which seeks to reinforce and promote its statutory duties pursuant to the Licensing Act 2003, which are the prevention of crime disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance and protection of children from harm. In considering an application, the committee must also consider the terms of Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 together with guidance. Merseyside Police believe the granting of this licence will impact on all the 4 licensing objectives outlined in Liverpool City Council's licensing policy. As the committee is aware, there was formerly a CIP for this area. A CIP was introduced due to the level of crime, disorder, public nuisance, littering, street drinking and antisocial behaviour, resulting in part from the current number of off-licences and late-night refreshment premises located in this area, which suffers from a high level of antisocial behaviour. You will recall that the representative at the last hearing did in fact witness street drinking during the day when he visited the premises to meet with the applicant. However, if a visit is made to this area now, it will be slightly less active due to the present pandemic. Although the CIA has been removed, the problems surrounding antisocial behaviour for this area still remain and can be demonstrated by the number of calls for service to this extremely vulnerable area. As outlined in the guidance, however, every application is judged on its own merit, and due to where these premises are situated, will only exacerbate ASB for this area. As referred to in the revised guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act, Section 14, subsection 42, I quote, "The absence of a CIA does not prevent any responsible authority or other person making representations on an application for the grant or variation of a licence on the grounds that the premises will give rise to a negative cumulative impact on one or more of the licensing objectives. However, in each case, it would be incumbent on the person making the representation to provide relevant evidence of cumulative impact. In this case, local councillors received voluminous support from local residents in this area, opposing another off-licence, which was reported by local press after it became apparent that these premises were in fact again applying for a premises licence. Indeed, some of the comments highlighted the fact that this area was going downhill fast, and it was a shame for the people who are living there because the older residents are in fact decent people. Another member of the public made reference to there being 6 takeaways, 3 pubs and 3 shops, all selling alcohol, all within a 5-minute walk of where they lived. They went on to say that if you walked a further 5 minutes from their address, you will find even more. From police records, there are 25 live licensed premises with the ability to sell alcohol for off sales, not including 12 public houses with the ability to sell both on and off sales in the Prescot Road area alone. I will now refer you to the bundle of evidence. The premises are practically located on the busy junction of Prescot Road, Shield Road, Kensington and Beach Street, which filters into the busy Edge Lane district of Liverpool. As can be seen at page 3 of the bundle, the premises are marked with a yellow spot. There are currently 39 premises licences in the Kensington Fairfield area, 20 of which are outlets for the off sales of alcohol. There is therefore a wide availability of alcohol in one or more of these licensed premises. I refer to the application for a premises licence made on behalf of the applicant. To refresh, previously these premises applied for a premises licence on 16 January 2016, and the application was refused at subcommittee hearing on 23 March 2016. The applicant again applied for a premises licence in October 2020, this time reducing the licensing hours to 9 AM to 10 PM, an hour less than requested in the application refused at the subcommittee hearing and was refused on 8 December 2020. The same applicant applied again in January 2021 and withdrew the application a short time thereafter. We now have yet another application, but this time with a new designated supervisor and revised conditions offered up in the operating schedule by the applicant's agent. Although the applicant requests and makes reference to shorter hours, it will not remove the issues in this area involving antisocial behaviour and public nuisance in this vulnerable area that takes place during the day. I have researched statistics and accessed incident logs from 4 systems which demonstrate that the antisocial behaviour occurs in close proximity to these premises. There is evidence of begging and drug use next door in the vicinity of Iceland. At pages 4 to 7 is a selection of incident logs for the designated beat E212 for this area. You will see there is a high level of antisocial behaviour related incidents from May 2020 to date, and in fact they are on the increase again, as demonstrated in some new statistics which I've looked at this morning. Highlighted in grey are the incidents where alcohol is a factor. More importantly, you will see that these incidents occur between the hours that the applicant has requested. Please refer to the plan at page 8 of the evidence bundle. The streets highlighted by red lines are where alcohol-related incidents and antisocial behaviour have occurred. The premises, which are marked with a star, sits within the centre of where the incidents have occurred. With regard to the community of the Old Swan Kensington Fairfield area, I refer to the community impact statement of Inspector Gardner at pages 12 to 13 of the bundle. His statement clearly demonstrates that this area is the subject of a high volume of antisocial behaviour, alcohol-related crime, and the increasing problems encountered with street drinkers. Inspector Gardner refers to the Public Space Protection Order, which came into force in September 2018 for a period of 3 years to combat street drinking and issues that flowed from it. Inspector Gardner states his team is regularly deployed to the area to police this PSPO, and also outlines the challenges in doing so. He also highlights that the issue of street drinking is regularly reported to neighbourhood officers by local councillors within this area. Of particular note is log MP 202000723-0440 at page 14 of the bundle, which is referred to in Inspector Gardner's statement. This incident takes place next door to the premises, which is reported at 11:47 hours during the day. There are 2 further logs reporting incidents in this vicinity. It will be seen from page 2 of the bundle that there is a large paved area outside this shopping area. The expanse is such that no doubt it will attract groups of youths meeting up or coming from McDonald's, which is on the opposite corner from the precinct, as well as other undesirables causing nuisance for bona fide customers wishing to visit these premises situated there. As at the date of his statement, Inspector Gardner accessed 4 systems to research the previous 180 days of incidents within this area. In particular, the postcode of where these premises are situate. Again, I refer you to the table of extracts from incident logs detailing reported incidents surrounding crimes relevant to violence, drugs or alcohol. At pages 15 to 17 of the bundle, there is a statement from Inspector 6093 Lloyd, who has only recently taken over the role of Neighbourhood Inspector from Inspector Gardner. He makes reference to the evidence included in the statement of Inspector Gardner used in the last hearing. He has now researched 4 systems, specifically using the postcode L7OLQ. His statement details 5 recent serious incidents, the most recent being 7th February 2021. These incidents, numerous others relating are the commission of lower level acquisitive crime incidents which have occurred whilst present COVID restrictions are in place, which is representative of the lengths that offenders will go to meet drug substance misuse. The area is continually monitored and has in the past months been the subject of police operations where counterfeit goods as well as dangerous weapons that have been recovered from off-licence premises. The owners of these off-licences admitted that these weapons are in their possession to protect themselves from harm following recent incidents in the locality. At the junction of Beach Road, Kensington is McDonald's, referred to earlier. At the opposite junction of Shield Road, Kensington is the Shield Park Public House. Both these premises have in the past been the subject of antisocial behaviour. These premises attract youth gatherings and drinkers respectively, which is often the source of incidents related to antisocial behaviour within this vicinity. Page 9 illustrates the number of calls for service to this beat at page 8, from which you will see the streets referred to in the plan referred to above. The premises are marked here with a black spot. At the time of production, there were 248 calls for service and 181 calls for service at locations either side of these premises. This number has now increased today to 388 since the last adjourned meeting. The committee will note that I have included new statistics at page 10, which demonstrates a rise in antisocial behaviour and crime-related behaviour. These figures would have been greater if lockdown restrictions were not in place. Page 10 is a crime map generated for this beat, which gives a more detailed breakdown of crime statistics to date. You will note the high level of crime relating to criminal damage, drugs possession and use. Public order offences and violence with and without injury outweigh other crimes committed in this area. I have since received from Neighbourhood Sergeant Lynch for this area a statement which gives a full breakdown of the problems in this area. He's also highlighted the seriousness of street drinking associated within this vicinity. Over the past 6 to 8 months, his community team have been working closely with partners from the local council and licensing teams to target problematic off-licence premises who persistently trade irresponsibly, from selling counterfeit alcohol and tobacco products to stronger beers and ciders, which are not permitted. And with respect, I do note that strong ciders and beers are not going to be sold from these premises. This is as a consequence of the demand from the type of people who are shopping in these stores. Although the applicant has stated that they will not stock strong beers, this will not deter the problem. Sergeant Lynch has advised that throughout this area there is a high concentration of off-licence premises which are in close proximity to all the problematic areas which are highlighted in the plans and heat maps referred to. I conclude, the addition of a further premises to sell off sales of alcohol in this area, albeit with reduced hours to those neighbouring premises, will undoubtedly increase the potential for alcohol-related crime and disorder, as well as youth-related crime. Although the applicant makes reference to the fact that alcohol above 6.5% will not be sold from these premises, this will not deter street drinkers to purchase spirits that are well in excess of 6.5%, nor will it deter youths from loitering outside the premises, which abuts the busy junction of Prescot Road, Shield Road and Kensington referred to. The average street drinker does not care where or at what time a purchase of alcohol will be made, and another premises will only add to the presently saturated area of where alcohol is widely available. There will be a significant impact of life within this vulnerable community, as well as the supported living accommodation known as Lister House, Lister Road, which is in the very next road to these premises. The accommodation currently has in place a public space protection order to protect the residents who suffer with problems associated to drug and alcohol dependency. Alcohol misuse affects individuals, families and communities, and has a wide range of significant and detrimental effects on local residents that impact on health and well-being, crime and disorder, children and businesses. There is a safety issue for the public. Street drinkers wander into the road and traffic. They may cause disturbance or turn violent and aggressively beg, as was the case on 7 February of this year. The location of the premises is also next to one of the main bus stops where children alight after returning home from nearby schools. At pages 18 to 21 of the bundle are heat maps, which show in effect the hotspots for antisocial behaviour. Page 19 gives the statistics of the time of day of when and where the incidents of antisocial behaviour occur. At the top of the chart is Prescot Road and Kensington, which demonstrates the time incidents of antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder occur during the hours that the applicant has applied for in this licensing application. Finally, at page 22 of the bundle is the ASB overview chart for B to E2, which illustrates a significant spike in the statistics for ASB during October-November for the beat alone. Sections 1 to 15 of the statutory guidance state that the legislation supports a number of key aims and purposes that are vitally important and should be the principal aims for everyone involved in licensing work to protect the public and local residents from crime and antisocial behaviour. Merseyside Police believe that the addition of a further off-licence will have a detrimental impact on an already vulnerable community area such as this. If these premises are granted a licence to sell alcohol, it will only exacerbate the hotbed of crime and disorder in this area associated with alcohol, as well as having a significant impact on the public purse with regard to the policing of this area. Following the removal of the cumulative impact policy for this area, if this application is granted today, no doubt it will open a floodgate of applicants wishing to make applications for premises policy was in place. This is the 4th time that these premises have come before committee after representations have been submitted. It is getting a tad wearisome now. Although the revised conditions and hours have been offered up, it does not alter where these premises are situate and problems pertaining to it. I therefore respectfully request that this application be refused. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee.
Thank you, Ms Levinson. I've only got one question at this time. We're talking about police time and how much police time is taken in this ward from alcohol abuse, begging and gang-related youths that are hanging around. Does it take up most of your police time, and does it have a negative effect on the police time that is put into this area?
Yeah, there is in fact a police operational plan in place for this area. So at the moment we have got, as I say, I was speaking to the neighbourhood inspector, Carl Lynch, for this area, and he demonstrates that there is a high level of problems in this area. It's a challenge for police in street drinking and associated crimes that's associated with it. It was subject formally to a CIP, but as I say, it may open the door for everyone to apply for licences. And street drinking and antisocial behaviour is, it's a problem in this area. Also, it's on a main bus route where children are coming to and from school. It's just where it's situated, like if you can see the photograph there, there's a big pavement where people can loiter around. There's a problem-solving team within Merseyside Police being appointed to deal with the issues in this area.
Thank you. That's all I have at the moment. Councillor Walton, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Kelly, do you have any questions?
Yeah, obviously we're hearing a lot, and we have done previously with similar applications about street drinking, crime, disorder, antisocial behaviour in the area. Clearly, these premises haven't got a licence to sell alcohol, so that would direct these issues to other premises in the area which sell alcohol. And I wonder if Merseyside Police have at any stage or are in the process of taking applications out to review any licences in that area, and whether there are any, obviously without naming them, whether there are any specific premises that are a cause of these problems in the area.
Not to my knowledge, Councillor.
In relation to what? Taking out reviews or problem premises?
There's no reviews at the moment.
So the problems in the area, do they lie with some of the premises in this location?
It's a generality surrounding this area, and obviously people are going to try to get alcohol no matter what, even though your agent refers to a minimum spend of £5 and a till prompt, etc. It will not deter someone going in with a fiver and topping up with alcohol. They've got to really show due diligence if that were to be an issue. As I say, it's one of those areas where we've got to try to keep the licenses, the availability for alcohol down. And obviously, as you quite rightly say, it's going to be 10% of the sales, but who's to say that will not increase in the future?
Okay, but in terms of, let's look at that particular condition where there has to be groceries purchased to the value of £5. Do you think that is a step in the direction to discourage street drinkers from going in just to purchase alcohol if they find themselves having to make £5 worth of purchases?
Yeah, it is a good idea. Yes, I agree with that.
And so if these premises are submitting an application with some stringent conditions to try and prevent them being responsible for some of these issues, then what I suppose I'm asking why is why is Mayor's site police concerned then about these premises rather than other premises that are clearly causing issues in this area?
Basically, the incidents occur off the premises. We can't really discuss other premises at this time. It's a matter for yourselves to decide with regard to the conditions and, in effect, the minimum spend of £5. So that's an idea for it's a decision for the committee to make on that one.
Okay. Yeah, that's all the questions I've got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more question for me, Ms. Robinson. We've had problems with a number of businesses in this area with trading standards and visits from the police. First port of call is usually a caution, and I know you can't name any of the businesses in the area, but have you got any information? Has there been cautions been sent out to some of the businesses in this area?
There's not been any police cautions.
No. I don't know about trading standards. Okay, thank you. It's just a question.
That's all right, Chair. Thank you.
Have you got any questions?
Have I got any questions?
No, Robin. Robin Tamada.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Thank you. Just one, Chair. In your address, Ms. Lawrence, you seem to be referring to previous applications in respect of this premises. Do I take it that you accept that this applicant, Mr. Paul Yan, hasn't made any applications previously in respect of this premises?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. The previous applications were not by Mr. Paul Yan.
No.
It was a separate.
This is the first one by this applicant, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Ms. Robinson. I might come back to Mr. Stamford Lisa. But thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson, we know all about the plan. What we want to know is your representation for the residents that live in this area and your knowledge of anything else that's been going on in this area. So
Yes,
Mr. Robinson.
Absolutely, Chair. Thanks and good morning. And let me just sort of start by saying, on behalf of myself and my two ward colleagues, Councillor Wendy Simon, Councillor Sue Walker, we're objecting to the proposal. I'm disappointed to be back here again. As the representative, Miss Lawrenson from the police, said, it was only 4 months ago that this came before the committee and was rejected. So we find it very disappointing that we've got to return to this situation. We're not here to question the applicant. In terms of we fully accept he's a new applicant, and without knowing the detail of how he's operated at other places, that's not something that we're challenging. But our reason for objecting to the application is very much because of the significant problems that we have in our area, as has been sort of already discussed very compellingly by Miss Lawrence, and I'd go further to say heartbreakingly, actually, because of the real sort of ingrained and difficult problems with street drinking and alcohol abuse in our community. It leads to aggressive begging in our area, particularly in and around that Shield Road, Beach Street, Kensington, Prescot Road junction, the confluence of those routes which this premises is directly located on. It leads to instances of noise and rowdy behaviour, with street drinkers being quite intimidating to other members of the public as they're walking around the area. It also leads on occasions to issues of sort of sporadic violence, where street drinkers, argue amongst themselves, and that leads to kind of overspills of violent behaviour. And in some circumstances, we've had the shocking events of medical emergencies, where street drinkers have literally collapsed in the street, and ambulances have had to come to the local area. Equally as problematically, we find a situation where some of the street drinkers openly urinate and defecate at nearby alley gates in the area. Again, sort of causing real harm to local people having to view that, particularly local children, as they sort of travel into a number of primary schools and one secondary school in the area. And it all leads to a real sort of reputational problem for our area, and the way that kind of local residents find the area really difficult, but many other people travelling through the area on one of the main routes in and out of the city have a very negative perception of our area. I think we should also raise the fact that whilst the street drinking and the aggressive begging is a significant problem in the area, it also puts additional pressure onto already stretched police resources. We have to remember about not just some of the things that Miss Lawrenson said, but Shield Road itself has a particularly ingrained issue with sex working and prostitution. You know, there are significant pressures on the local police team and significant crime and antisocial behaviour issues in the local area. I think from our perspective as well, whilst we welcome some of the conditions that are being proposed, we don't believe that they go far enough to give us comfort that these premises, if given a licence, wouldn't add to the problems in the area. For example, it's a very good quality Eastern European specialist shop. I've been in myself and have made purchases there. I think from our perspective, we struggle to understand why not declare if it's Eastern European specific products, why not put those on the licence, the specific types of products that you're going to sell, rather than something that could technically be any type of general alcohol. We acknowledge the minimum spend of groceries, but why not actually be stronger and have a minimum price on the alcoholic products? That would go a long way to reassure us that street drinkers wouldn't be coming to these premises, because it wouldn't be cost competitive for them to do so. Equally, we acknowledge the offer of SIA trained door staff. We are concerned, though, on a risk assessed basis, that really is too flimsy and not sort of robust enough. Tesco, when they operated from these premises previously, had a permanent door presence, and at the very least we would suggest that a full door presence would need to be in place, not just something on a risk assessed basis that feels that it's very sort of flimsy. We'd also suggest that that would be in the interests of the business itself, as there are kind of fresh fruit and vegetable products outside of the premises, so at the least having a permanent door staff presence would go a long way to sort of reassure us that this was a different type of operation. With all of the points that we've said, we don't believe that the conditions go far enough, and we would ask that the committee rejects this application.
Thank you for that, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Walton, do you have any questions for Councillor Robinson?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Kelly?
No, I don't have any questions, thanks.
I just have one. Councillor Robinson. You say residents are constantly getting in touch with you about issues in and around the area and their complaints. How much is your time taken up with the residents, with the police? And do you know of any issues with trading standards, although they're not here today, that some of these other premises have failed trading standards meetings? And when a licence in one area, in one business, refuses to sell a person, then they go to another, then they go to another, and go to another. And what impact does that have? What I'm trying to get, you have a meeting with the businesses within the area and try and look at this openly, and what comes back from those meetings?
That's a very good point, and thank you, Chair. We don't have a formal business forum. We would love to have one. We have tried to establish one, and if I'm being very honest with you, we've struggled to get engagement from businesses of all sizes to actually try to establish something. In terms of the trading standards activity in the area, I am aware of the fact that trading standards have been around the area recently, and another similar premises was dealt with because they found knives in the fruit and veg section action for cutting those accordingly. I'm aware of there was action taken around a similar presence on that. I'm not aware of any more detailed action that trading standards have taken, but my point being that I do know that trading standards are having to be sort of very regularly present within the area accordingly.
Okay, thank you for the Councillor Robinson. Robin, have you got any questions for Councillor Robinson?
No, thank you, Chair.
You may come back to you, Councillor Robinson. What I'm going to do now, Mr. Stamper, is ask you to respond to the police concerns and Councillor Robinson's concerns.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, right. Let's deal with Miss Lawrenson's concerns. First of all, she's detailed a list of previous applications to do with this premises. As I probably maybe didn't stress it enough in my initial presentation, this is a new application, and what went on before is irrelevant to this process. Okay, she's somehow managed to mention all of the licensing objectives, talking from the heart about public health and nuisance, for example, but actually she has restricted herself by her submission, her representation, to speak solely upon crime and disorder. Now, you're absolutely right, there was formerly in place a cumulative impact area, and it has been raised. Now, through your excellent website, I watched a meeting of this excellent committee on the 30th of 12/20, whereby the continuation of the cumulative impact assessment was properly and fully discussed. The police themselves did not support the continuation of the cumulative impact assessment. On that date, this subcommittee took the deliberate and positive decision to abandon the CIP and CIA, and in making that decision, this committee decided as a finding of fact that of the 30th of 12/20, there was insufficient evidence to support either. But now the police have produced evidence today to show historic cumulative impacts and claim it as their grounds to object to the application. This they cannot do because the majority of this evidence was available on the 30th of December 2020, but on that date there was a finding of fact of insufficient evidence to warrant the imposition of control measures based upon cumulative impact. And therefore, any evidence of cumulative impact that they bring before you today must post-date, if they bring it before you today, it must post-date the 30th of December 2020. Almost all of their data does not, and as such it is therefore irrelevant. Now, we acknowledge the problems of a similar type that sustained the previous cumulative impact and cumulative impact policy. However, the massive list of robust conditions that we have offered, both within the application and the additional raft today before you right now, go to address those concerns. Yet, as of the 30th of the 12th of last year, the CIP and CIA expired. Their days are past. Yes, the representatives can bring evidence of cumulative impact, but it must be post the 30th of the 12th, and that's my point. So it does not mean that by bringing it today that they can ask you to reimpose the CIP or indeed treat this application as though the CIA was still in force. Okay, right, the evidence of newspaper reports, well, thank you for that, but actually we've not been served with any of that. That's all new to us today, and with respect, venture to suggest it's not admissible. We've heard about this statement from Inspector Gardner, and it's very good. I've got it before me here, and we turn to page 14, and we've got 6. He's I presume it's a him. The good inspector has listed 6 incidents in 180 days. Okay, only 4 of those fall within the time parameters that we will be operating. Okay. And therefore that's 180 divided by 4. That means that actually of these incidents, the evidence is there's one occurring once every 45 days. I also point out that 3 of them occurred at Iceland. I suggest that the police need to pay some attention to Iceland, and that's in all honesty. Okay, so and during her evidence, she's talked about premises in close proximity to where we wish to operate, and that Iceland is a problem. Again, Iceland is the problem. So these new stats are historic, and furthermore, they are absolutely nothing to do with this applicant or this application. Right, we've heard evidence of weapons, how shopkeepers need to protect themselves from harm. They are, again, the fact that other shopkeepers feel the need to self-harm, completely unacceptable, and again, is nothing to do with this applicant or the application. And also, it's the first we've heard of it today. It's new evidence. There are very clear rules on how to adduce evidence before you, and we haven't seen it, so it's very, very hard for us to address you on it. Now, we've heard about these 388 calls for service. First time we've heard about it today, okay, and Officer Lawrenson has confirmed that these offences have been committed away from the premises. Now, I read you at great length the statement of licence and wrong, the statutory guidance, and also your own statement of licensing policy that recognises that incidents that occur away from the premises are the perpetrator is answerable in their own right and in law. And again, for the umpteenth time, I don't want to bore you, but actually it's got nothing to do with our applicant or our application, because he's never sold any alcohol to anyone. Now, Officer Lawrenson has explained that other premises sell strong alcohol to street drinkers. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, but that's nothing to do with us. And we've already told you that we're not going to be doing that. We're not even going to be stocking it. So with respect, that's irrelevant. She's talked about there's a strong demand for strong alcohol in the area. I'm sorry to hear that. But again, I reiterate only that we won't sell it. Now, the floodgates argument is irrelevant, because your considerations must be based on the licensing objectives alone, and not if other people try and apply for things further up the road. She's described this as the fourth application. She's a tad wearisome with it. Again, previous applications are irrelevant. Now, there's some talk about the bus route, children coming to and from school. Well, therefore, working on this theory, ma'am, no licences should be granted in Liverpool unless they sell alcohol after 6 o'clock at night, perhaps, on every day. Officer Lawrenson's also told us that there are no reviews of problem premises. We've heard about all these problems. Somebody's selling it to somebody, and somebody's self-harming. Well, there are no reviews of these problem premises. And with respect, I might suggest a failure to address the pre-existing problems at pre-existing licensed premises. There have been no cautions for any of these offences that have been committed, and seemingly, therefore, no prosecutions. Now, I'm struggling for words. Now, the good Councillor Robinson, I always enjoy appearing at the same hearings as him. Okay. He's disappointed to be back because he was here 4 months ago. Well, yes. Again, the previous applications, any previous applications or any previous operating these premises is actually irrelevant to this premises. But actually, 4 months ago, things were very, very different, because you did have a cumulative impact assessment in place then. It's now gone, and that's a real game changer. Okay. Aggressive begging. The councillor mentions aggressive begging, noise, rowdy, intimidating street drinkers. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but you've actually got a remedy to that. It's called the PSPO. And only once in 3 years have the police issued a fixed penalty under the police public spaces protection order. We're hearing about people urinating and defecating in alleys. Again, I don't want to give you the impression I'm insensitive to these problems, but I am sorry to hear it. But it's got nothing to do with this applicant, and you've got a PSPO to deal with those kind of behaviours. Now, police resources. When we've mentioned sex working, we've heard mention of sex working and prostitution. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's actually my guy's never sold any alcohol. This is a licensing hearing, okay? And there are other responsible authorities that could come here and talk loquaciously about that, but they are absent. They've raised no objection, no representation, because as far as they can see, the licensing, the operating schedule and the conditions proffered do indeed promote the licensing objectives. There's been some suggestion of, do we need to list the products we're going to sell? We're going to sell Eastern European stuff. Every time you wanted to take on a new line with respect to, you'd have to go and ask for a minor or a major variation to the premises license. Varies. That's an expensive process and time consuming as well. And we've also heard mention that the risk assessed SIA door team, you'd like to have one present full time. Okay, well, with respect, actually, you've got problem premises already in the area. Now, why not review the problem premises for what they are doing wrong, and then insist upon them having a full-time SIA team, rather than speculating as to what may or may not happen at this place, which is already offering only sales contingent of £5 of groceries. That's not cigarettes. So you can't go in there, buy a £10 packet of cigarettes and a load of drink. This is groceries, okay? And you are going to be looking at, you know, if street drinkers seriously want to buy there, there are going to be mounds of discarded groceries outside because they need to buy £5.
I would just interrupt you there, Mr. Sanford. I mean, we're going into summing up here. I think the problem, and I think what the council is here for and what the police are here for, they haven't said the area, the problems in the area are contributing to this new business, is they have a problem in that area and they don't want to exacerbate that problem.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the key.
Okay.
They've got a problem and we know all the rest of it, but we're still going over stuff. So
okay.
The
key to this is, and I'll take a sounding from former Inspector Tony Dales, because he and I have walked very similar paths and been local policing commanders in our own right. We are sorry to hear the complaints from local residents. However, this is most likely a failure to enforce the PSPO that your good city has given to the enforcement authorities. The tools have been given to enforce and police out these ASB and nuisance problems, and it's simply not happening. Now, if you want me to summarise, I'll be really quick. Okay, we have shown how the evidence of pre-existing issues provided by the police post 30th of the 12th is so old and so unconnected with this premises that in our submission it is irrelevant, and you may want to take advice from your legal advisor on that. This is like any other application. This decision, like any other in these circumstances, needs to be made on its own merits. And as I have said, the evidence before you leaves the operating schedule and offered conditions completely unchallenged. The applicant is an established operator of premises similar to these with a proven track record of compliance and due diligence. Now, we have provided a line-by-line breakdown of how the operating schedule of this application is capable and will promote the licensing objectives and the statement of licensing policy, and ticks all, or indeed exceeds all of your model conditions, exceeds them in many, many instances. Furthermore, we've offered many more additional conditions, making this application probably unique in its breadth and depth for the lengths that we will go to in order to promote the licensing objectives. So we conclude that we've offered extremely robust conditions that ensure that we will indeed promote the licensing objectives. We believe, therefore, that the intended operation will be conducted in a manner that fully promotes the licensing objectives, and that is everything we are required to do by the current legislation and the statutory guidance and the Liverpool City Council statement of licensing policy and your attendant model conditions. Now, if, however, there are further conditions that this panel might suggest, we will, of course, accommodate them, but I'll start where I finished. I'll finish where I start. Okay, this is a great application, well thought through. And it's so highly conditioned, I've never seen one like it. And it's also modest. And I exhort you, therefore, to grant it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Sanford. Ms. Lawrenson, summing up, please.
Okay, firstly, can I address the Freedom of Information request? It was sent to the council and the figures produced are theirs and didn't come from the police, and therefore may not reflect the true picture of what happened. We're unable to provide information what has been done. However, I can quote from the request. The requested information is not held centrally or in a readily searchable format. To obtain the data would require a manual review of the pocket notebooks of all officers who have conducted a patrol through the PSPO area since the order came into effect in 2015. So that addresses the Freedom of Information request there. With reference to the CIP being removed, the police licensing unit had no input on this review. It was a matter for the local command team. The statistics that have been produced here today are valid and current. I also go on to say it's situated on a bus route used by school children. There's a high level of street drinking during the day, witnessed indeed by the representative at the last hearing. Although it was historical, it'll probably still be going on today. It's near to hostels for the vulnerable, victims of alcohol and substance misuse, which are still going on today. There's been more than sufficient calls for service to this area. Post-lockdown, the calls will no doubt rise. Although the CIP for this area has been removed, ASB has not, as mentioned above. It will no doubt increase once lockdown is lifted in the summer. Local residents are in support of the council in refusing this premises a licence. My objections support the licensing objective of the prevention of crime and disorder, which in refusing this application will assist Merseyside Police in so doing. The addition of further licensed premises will only add to the already saturated number of available outlets for off-sales of alcohol, which lies at the root of the majority of problems within this extremely vulnerable area. I reiterate my reference: the absence of CIA does not prevent any responsible authority or other person making representations on an application for the grant or variation of a licence on the grounds that the premises will give rise to a negative cumulative impact on one or more of the licensing objectives. However, in each case, it would be incumbent on the person making the representation to provide relevant evidence of cumulative impact. Chair, it is a matter for the committee to reach their own conclusion in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Councillor Robinson, bring you in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, certainly. Mr. Semper said he always appreciates attending these hearings with myself. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe I've ever met him before, so I'm a little bit puzzled as to where that comment might have come from. But notwithstanding, you've heard a lot of evidence today at this hearing, and particularly some heartbreaking evidence about the real challenges and problems within our community, summed up very much with the evidence presented by Merseyside Police. Whilst we don't question the applicant as an individual, we don't believe that the application has sufficient restrictions genuinely to give ourselves and our local community the comfort that this will not exacerbate the problems in the area. So very simply from us, we would ask that the committee reject the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Right. Robin, have you got anything further to add before?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, everybody, what will happen now is we'll make a decision today. That decision will be forwarded on within the next 5 working days. If for any reason you're not happy with the decision we make today, you have 21 days to appeal our decision through the Magistrates' Court. If that be the case, I do suggest you seek legal advice. But I thank you for your attention.